Hello everyone, good afternoon or good morning because 11 a.m. so it's in the middle. But my name is Justin and I'm part of the digital marketing team here at DGX and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Before we start, do fill out the form by scanning the QR code or visit the link provided in the description so that we can send you the slides and extra materials after this. Similar to our other webinars, today's is also part of DG's Business Continuity Digitalization or #BCD initiative, together held with MDEC. A quick introduction to DGX before we begin. DGX is DG's venture builder arm, and our focus is to help Malaysian companies of all sizes solve their problems by digitalizing their operations through our products, such as our super app for companies, OutHR, our virtual landline system, Omni Hotline, and our fleet management system, iFleet. As you know, this webinar will be more focused towards our design process throughout all these three products and how our only two designers in the whole company conceptualize and carry out their work. Our two designers who will be speaking today are Alex and Nicholas, who are here today to share with you how they rapidly tested, evaluated, and carry out their work. So fun fact, actually, Nicholas bagged a silver medal in the Adobe Certified Associate World Championship in Orlando, Florida, back in 2016. That is why you saw, learn from Adobe World Champion. So that is Nick. But let's invite both of our designers here first to ask them a few questions to start off this webinar.
Hello, hi everyone.
Alex, hi Nick. Nice to see you guys again. All right. So I think I just have one quick question before we start this. As a small team of only two, right, and you have to work with three products, and in three products you have different people you need to manage as well and manage their expectations. How do you guys juggle between designing for three products, and does it get overwhelming at times?
I think it does get overwhelming at times, but I think it's also more about having the flexibility to wear many hats, to open to new ideas and new skill sets, so that you are able to adapt to the overwhelming workload that we have here. And I think not just in DGX, in every other design agencies or even like companies, they would have a bunch of workloads like this. So I think it's more to that, knowing how to leverage tools and also open to the idea of learning something new as well.
Yep, definitely. Continuing from where Nick is saying that, I think this happens to almost every single company that has designers, and you always have this situation where you are short-handed and you feel like you're lacking resources, and you feel like it's like overwhelming. So it's part and parcel of the job. I think it happens to not just designers. I believe it happens to developers, or even if you're in sales, you're in a management team as well. So it's basically like you're just trying to find ways, or maybe perhaps like on a topic on today, right? You find tools to help you automate tasks and stuff like that, and try to make the best of it. As much as you want to try to say that, oh, we have all these processes to streamline things, but the world is always changing, as well as like COVID-19 has just came, and it has made drastic changes that we all have to adapt to. So it's kind of like just trying to make the best of it.
All right. Okay, enough of me talking. Let's start with the first session from Nick. On to you, Nick.
Hi, thanks, Justin. So in today's talk, we're gonna be mainly be explaining like the tools that we use in DGX and how we leverage them so that we can like meet like important deadlines and even like just business requirements in general. So I think nowadays designers, we are all expected to be to wear many hats. Like you could be hired as a graphic designer, but you would like even in the job description it doesn't say that you will be editing videos or create animations. You might need to do that even because the industry is always changing. There's always new things, new trends coming in, and it's always important for us to really adapt to these trends and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's really no different here even in DGX. In DGX, every one of us wear many hats. So like even marketing team could be doing a little bit of design, and even like for us the designers here in DGX, we also help in the development process of things, especially in the front end aspects. So these are really the design tools that we all mostly use. So for UI UX, we used to use XD, but more on that later. We are now currently using Figma and Webflow. So Figma is basically a prototyping tool. For those who don't know, it allows you to create like prototypes for your apps or websites. And once we're done with that, we usually would then move on to Webflow. So Webflow, it's basically you see what you get editor. Think of it like Wix or like a WordPress, I say. But Webflow allows you a lot more flexibility in terms of how you lay out your designs and how you lay out, how you create like certain functions. It has way more customizability compared to Wix or like Squarespace, where you are only limited to a certain template or like their own limited functionality. But more on that later. Alex is going to be mainly talking about Webflow later. Zeplin is basically our handover tool to devs. And for animation and video, sometimes we will need to edit videos for like marketing purposes, or even like After Effects for like animations for even, for like mobile apps, or even also again marketing materials. Lottie is basically a plugin to convert animations into easily digestible like JSON files to place in the apps, which I will explain more later. Graphic design and photography, which is the usual Adobe suite stuff, the AI, Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, XD sometimes, Lightroom. So these are the things that we usually use because I sometimes also take photography for the company as well. So and others. So SendGrid is something that we use to send our marketing emails and handle our email campaigns as well. And it has a really neat tool where you are able to create your own email templates inside. It's also a type of you see what you get editor where you're able to drag and drop components inside and customize them to your liking, and we use it, and it's just part of the package when you get the subscription. So it's really good. GitHub is something that we designers have been starting to really like start using it, because after we design our stuff in Webflow, we will then have to export the code and then commit into GitHub, which Alex will explain more later on later on in the webinar. So let's move on to XD. So Adobe XD is I'm gonna just be focusing on a few design tools that we use the most here in the webinar. So I'm gonna talk more about XD and why we stopped using it, and we move on to Figma. And I'm gonna talk about why we like Figma over XD. And I'm gonna talk about like Lottie and how it plays a role in our UI UX team. And I'm gonna talk about how we hand over stuff to the developers as well. So basically, XD is basically, for those who don't know, is also a prototyping tool. It's a free tool by Adobe, and basically in our office we mostly use it for like prototyping, illustrations, icons, because it's basically like a lightweight version of Adobe Illustrator. It's basically a stripped down Adobe Illustrator with all the tools there. Of course, you don't have the full functionality of AI, but it's still good enough to create simple illustrations and icons. We also use it to like composite like marketing collaterals. We would like move finished elements, put it into XD, and our marketing guys will come in and then just compose different marketing like ads or even banners for marketing campaigns. So it's really useful. It's really lightweight, easy to use. So the accessibility is really good especially for newcomers or beginners. Because in our office, the marketing also tends to help with designing like emails or even like ads as well. So XD is a great tool for them. So as you can see, Adobe, our office just love using Adobe XD. Not just UI UX. We use it for all our ads here in DGX. Even simple like even posters as well. But then of course we don't use it for printed materials. We only use it for digital stuff because XD is not really good for printed stuff because it only caters for 72 PPI, which is like the minimum PPI for like digital stuff. So why we stopped using XD? The main reason why we stopped using XD is because of the file management. So this is a zoom out screenshot of what it looks like for our HR's app. So at first it was really, really messy. It was really hard to organize all the screens into like single groups and stuff, and it's really hard to find the file you need. So we ended up just like the POs or devs would just come in the project and then ask me where are the files, where are the screens that they're looking for. So it's a mess lah. Basically, it's like we can't really like organize the pages in a very effective manner. I started back then. We did not really try to explore new options. We started really exploring new options ever since we ran into this issue. So I went and explored, and then I saw this code editor tool on like which is called like Figma, and I started using it. And the more I use it, the more I fell in love with it. So the real problem when it comes to XD is also like the collaboration aspect of it, because sometimes me and Alex would need to use the same project, and XD doesn't provide real-time collaboration, but Figma does, and it's a big game changer. So we started like throwing XD away and say goodbye XD. We're gonna use Figma now. And now the real great thing about real-time Figma is what I mentioned, which is real-time collaboration. The fact that you are able to like work with your colleagues in real time is a big game changer for us, especially in times of these times of pandemic where everyone is like working from home. We are all like working virtually. It's hard for us to really collaborate in a more I would say like intimate sense lah. I say so having Figma and you being able to see your colleagues like working on the same project. You could even see what they're looking at. You can even see what they are working on. So everything's real time. You don't need to. There's no real like safe syncing kind of fake real time to it, which what Adobe has right now. So it's really good. Maybe in the future when Adobe has real time collaboration, we can consider maybe going back to it. But for now, we are happy with Figma. So file management is also what I mentioned, which is a really like big problem back in XD, where you are not able to like organize your pages in a more effective way. In Figma, there's a feature called like pages, where you are able to group screens into certain groups like this. And what we do in our HR is we group them into like features, individual features. Like for example, if I have services screens, I would then put it into a services group. And all I need to do is just navigate to the pages list, which is what you see here on the slide, and click services, and you're able to see everything inside the set. I will give you a little demonstration about this. So for example, if let's say right now, I'm in the demo page and I need to get to address book, which maybe because I need to find address book designs, or even I need to comment something on address book, I will just click address book here on the pages list, and all my pages will be here. So it's much more organized. You don't need to scroll across different canvases, different like the whole canvas just to find that single screen. It's much more manageable doing this. Next, it will be accessibility. Now, Adobe XD isn't that bad in terms of accessibility. All you need to do is just to download the free software and you're able to use it. But the fact that Figma allows you to fully utilize the software itself on Chrome, whether it could be on the Firefox, it could be like Windows, it could be on Mac. That's really good for us. Like we can just easily just send a link to devs, to PO, to stakeholders to easily look at the various designs that we have lah. And I'm, to be honest, I don't really like. People would also ask me why do I not use Sketch as well, but I do not like the fact that I'm limited to a certain platform, which is Mac, because Sketch is only available to the Mac. Which is why we chose Figma, where you are able to use it regardless of your platforms. Because for me personally, I also own a Windows machine, so it's really useful for me to switch when I need to switch in between machines. So The next thing we're going to talk about will be Lottie. Lottie is a plugin of sorts. So what it does is essentially it just changes. It will convert your existing animations in After Effects, and then it would then change them into a very simple file format called JSON. So JSON is a super lightweight file format that when compared to GIFs, because GIFs are essentially like a sequence of images. So you can imagine like each image being like, if let's say they are 1 MB, and then you have 180 frames, that will be a really heavy GIF. So it really helps the app to render the animations much faster, and it also helps reduce the weight of the app as well, which is really beautiful. I highly recommend if you designers haven't tried this yet, to really try using Lottie for your websites or even for your mobile apps, because it's really easy to use and it's very simple to for devs to implement as well. Lottie is also really good at like having animations itself lah. Basically, even having animations in UI UX process is really important, because it really adds a sense of like interaction between the app and the user itself. For example, if you go to look at your Grab app right now, every time you order a Grab, order food from Grab, you will see like this animation of someone preparing the food for you. So this is all just part of the UX. It really adds a flavor to it, like some sprinkles of like UX to it, like fanciness to it, like, basically. So let me show you how it usually works in Figma, where I can. So Figma also has a really cool plugin where you're able to sync with your Lottie Files account, because once you're done with your Lottie files, you're able to upload to a online service. Is called Lottie Files, where you upload there, and then once you're done, all you need to do is sync your account with the plugin here in the Figma, and you're able to look at all your animations. So for example, right now I have this one animation where the gift box just pops open. This was for one of our older apps. And over here, if you look at previews, you would see all the animations that we have done. So these are all the animations that we have done for our various products, and it's really easy to use. All you need to do is you need to either convert into GIF or an SVG, and you just need to put it back in, and you would usually see the animation in prototyping in the prototype as well, like so. So it's really cool. Like even when you are actually prototyping it in Figma, you could even see the animation at work yourself. So it really adds a much more interactivity on the app itself. So right now, moving on, I'm going to talk about Zeplin. So Zeplin is now, people would always ask me, why do I need an additional handover tool for when we already have Figma? Because Figma also has like handover tool features. But the reason why we decided to use Zeplin is because Figma is always a ever-changing environment. It always changes depending on like what we have done, what we have created, and we don't want the devs to see that. We don't want the devs to be confused by the amount of changes that we have on a daily basis, and it's also, I want to keep Figma as like a playground for both like PO or like even designers to play around with designs, change copy and stuff. And Zeplin will only be the one single source of truth for devs. So devs do not need to worry about things being changed in Figma. All they need to do is to keep track of things in Zeplin. So what we usually do is, let's say, for example, in Zeplin, we would always export the screen out here. And what I do is I would just comment and let my developers know, in this case, Daryl, to let him know that, hey, this is the model sheet. We have it in the previous feature. Maybe we could reuse it and maybe rework it to look better. So this is where we usually start commenting on like specifications, requirements, certain things that maybe like you would miss if it's not in the requirement. Like small little gestures, like what Daryl has given a great idea on, which is we allow a swipe gesture for the bottom sheet, and it's really good. Like, and I also gave developers a chance to compare between two softwares, which is Figma and Zeplin, on the coding feature of it. Because the good thing about Zeplin is that you're able to select any of the elements here, and you're able to see like the code version of it, which really helps them to start off like not start off from scratch. They're able to start off with something substantial instead of like a blank screen or instead of just a static image. And from their feedback, they seem to love Zeplin way more, the code in Zeplin way more than in Figma, which is why we decided to stick with Zeplin for handover tools. I think that really concludes like the individual UI UX tools that we have used so far. I'm going to move this pass this webinar to Alex. He's going to talk more about Webflow and how Webflow really bridges the gap between us designers and development. So on to you, Alex.
Hi. All right. Hi, guys. So thanks, Nick, for the session. And so I'm continuing on where Nick has left off. So he spoke about how we have been using all of the design tools like Adobe, Figma, and all those things, right? And then we basically, so how the process starts majority of the time is basically we still have all the design done in Adobe or Figma, depending on what the requirements. Of course, I would just love to stress that Adobe, we still love you, but Figma is doing better. So yeah. Anyway, so once Nick, most of the time, he would be handling a lot of all the UI design on Figma, and then on my end, we collaborate on a certain extent. So on my side, majority of the time I would cover on the web portion. And what you see on your screen right now, this is the sample view of a project in Webflow. So Webflow is basically basically the whole big hoo-ha of a no-code era, where you can just drag and drop, and if you don't know anything about HTML, CSS, you can still build a website. You can build any kind of web elements that you want to. And the reason why we actually moved to Webflow was that previously, how we actually build any type of prototypes or even websites, product sites, or even marketing sites, as a matter of fact, right, is that we still utilize the old ways where you either use a Visual Studio Code, or you can be using either any IDE of your choice, and you basically just code the layout. So there's inherently nothing wrong using this method, but from experience-wise, if you ask any developers, you need time to code, you see. When you code it, and then you have to kind of like just save it and look at the browser again. You do the whole cycle of refreshing just to see things on screen. So of course, there's a lot of tools right now that actually helps you kind of like speed up this thing if you're just a pure code geek itself. But you know, sometimes if you have something like more like a busy week where you can just drag and drop and make edits on the spot, right? It always looks better. So this is the strength where Webflow comes in. It's very robust too, where you can just drag and drop, or if you really want to just dive deep down, right, and just do some custom coding, you can do that as well. So I'm just going to run through on the capabilities of Webflow very quickly. So in Webflow, right, you have your left panel, your center panel. This is what they call like a canvas. That's where everything happens. So these are all the elements that's been created. And then on the right hand panel, this is the right column over here. This is where you actually make all the CSS edits. So let's say, for example, if I want to click on one of these elements, right? So you can see of the layout, the spacing, the sizing. I can control every aspect that if I do it conventionally when I'm coding. So let's say, for example, like if I'm going to click on these elements, right, I can already see like the paddings. It's only 16 pixels for each side, top, left, and right. So basically, if you want to do this inside just coding in Visual Studio Code, right, you can do that as well. But the great thing is that I can do this visually, and I can see it happening instantly, right? That's a really great thing to help people like me and Nick to speed up our development process, especially when we are trying to prove a case or trying to develop or experiments on certain user experience sites, right? And you really want to try to validate whether that works or not. Sometimes just coding it takes a little bit too much time, right? And you're kind of like feeling like, oh, so lazy to code it. But with Webflow, you can do it like so super fast. So yeah, let me just show you on how this is one of the modules that we've been building. It's called a team calendar. And if let's say you're using HR, this will be something that you'll be seeing probably soon. So reason why I built this team calendar in Webflow was because we wanted to kind of like find a way to quickly prototype how the team calendar would look like. Using Figma, of course, you could do it, but it doesn't really provide you that kind of instant interactions, right? So which is why we built this one. So just to show you how Webflow actually works very well is that, let's say, for example, if let's say right now I have this label that tells me this annual leave, and I have all these sections, right? And if I wanted to just create a new element or something like that, I could always just click on one of these items and copy and paste it, and I could just edit the things over here. Let's say, for example, I just say change the name to say Abdullah. And if I wanted to add any new elements, let's say, for example, I wanted to add a new text element, I can just drag and drop over here. And this is a new label. And let me just give it a new class, let's say, for example, like small, which I have already created previously. And I wanted to use this to display certain new labels to just notify users that this is a sample element. Okay. So right now, once I'm done inside Webflow, I can just publish it. So I just want to run you through, guys, that the amazing thing about Webflow is that, you see, I just drag and drop some element over there, and on the right-hand panel, I just apply the class that I've already done on it, and then I can just preview it over here. So yeah, so the good thing about Webflow is that whatever you do over here is exactly the same thing that you could do it inside Visual Studio Code. But the good thing is that you can just do it visually and just edit the design as you want to. And then once you're done, you can just publish it immediately and have this thing in a real browser with a real address, and you can just showcase it to your business leads, to your developers, and hand it off. And the very good thing about this is that if they were to go inside inspection mode, they can already see all the intricacies about the particular element. So you don't really have to prepare too much in terms of documentation to just to brief the developer, hey, this one it should be this amount of padding or doing this amount of behavior and stuff like that. Because by going into inspection mode, they can already see how the kind of vision that you have for the particular prototype that you built for them, and they could really see how it performs. So for this one example, you can see that it's actually responsive as well. So I was previously in the desktop mode. This is the desktop mode, and I have already built this horizontal scrolling behavior on it as well. And I also did this simple interaction where I can select the dates, and it shows the state of when it's active and when it's not active. Okay, so, and I can scroll this, I can scroll it up and down, and then I can also, just to showcase the responsive mode, this is how it looks like. So yeah. So the good thing about this one is that using Webflow, you can quickly prototype things like this. For example, you can just showcase all these things to your business leads and all of your colleagues, right? That the kind of vision that you have when you're trying to build a new prototype or you're trying to build a new business case. So yeah, that is Webflow for you in essence. But I just want to walk you through on this one as well. Some of you might be asking, hey, so Webflow is so powerful, but I've been hearing all this no-code stuff and stuff like that, right? What does that really mean? Can I still perform custom coding and all those things? Yeah, obviously you can. So let's say on this team calendar, right, I can just select on this one, and Webflow actually offers these features where you have that setting icons over here, and you can specify any amount of custom code that you could basically imagine. So I just show you, this is down and dirty code that we have did. Basically just toggling classes and stuff like that, right? So let's, for example, just now you saw where I have those dates where I could select it. So this is where we actually specify the simple JavaScript just to add class, remove class, toggle class, and that, for example, to just quickly show simple functionality to showcase it to business needs and all and our developers as well. So yeah, that's the good thing about it on these things. And let me see what else I can show you on Webflow. Oh yeah, the good thing about Webflow is that you could also do things like simple interactions. So they actually offer visual-based animations created. So this is where the part, let's say, for example, if I were to select on I want to select on this item, and I could specify element trigger. So just to show you this quick example, if I click on the add button right now, so I can specify things like this, for example, mouse click, or when it scrolls into view, it should do certain animations and stuff like that. So if let's say I wanted to say that when it scrolls into view, probably not the first one, the best example, but let us put something at the bottom over here so I can show you clearly how it works. All right, I'm going to select that element, and I'm just going to say scroll into view. So you can see over here is that it gives me two options over here right now. What happens when it scrolls into view, and what happens it scrolls out of view. So obviously for power developers or some of the new designers who are very good at coding, right? You say that, hey, I could do this easily using JavaScript and stuff like that. Yes, you could. But imagine the outside world where, you have a lot of other designers who are purely just designers and they don't really want to touch code, right? You could just use Webflow and create animations, create websites, web prototypes, right, very quickly without probably knowing any single line of HTML. But of course, if you've asked me personally, I would always recommend, designers to just take up these some hours in your time to just learn the basic intricacies of HTML, CSS, and even JavaScript for the matter of fact. You don't need to know the entire scope of JavaScript, but knowing like even basic jQuery would be very good. So coming back to here, when I say when I could scroll into view, I can select this one. I could say slide. I specify this one, and then I could specify the direction as well. So let's say, for example, I selected slide in from left, and I can preview it. So you saw what happened when I click preview. So this is what happens if I scroll it and it shows that particular item right, and it comes into view, it would just behave that way. So I specify that. I just want to quickly specify another one, which is to slide out to the left, just to show you what happens. Yeah. So once I apply this on this particular blue element, and then I'm just going to quickly publish it, and I'm going to show you how it looks like right now. Okay, so once I'm here, you see, it slide in very quickly. So I'm going to quickly just do a quick refresh. Show you again. So you see that it's coming in too fast, and that's the great thing about Webflow as well. In this interaction editor actually provides a lot of options that you could customize further. So we didn't quite like it that it came in too fast, right? So what I could do is that I could specify the offset as well. Let's say, for example, I set it to 20%. So what happens when I specify that offset 20% is that I have to scroll the page further up in order to trigger that particular interaction. So I'm going to publish this one again very quickly. And then I'm going to preview, scroll it back up. I'm just going to do a Control F5 to load it again. So now you see it doesn't come in there. But once I scroll past the 20% mark, it comes in. So yeah, this is one of the great things about Webflow, that you could do this kind of quick interactions, quick prototyping, and even just to create a product website, right, entirely on Webflow and host it there as well. So coming back to talking about hosting product websites, right, I just want to show you like our HR website. This is created entirely in Webflow. So obviously the design and everything else, we actually have it in Figma first. And then once we have the visuals and all those things done, right, we just quickly get down and dirty and just start building all of the pages that we wanted to build, and as well as all the elements that we needed to. So let's say, for example, like all these things, right, all can be done easily inside Webflow. So let's say, for example, once I've done the early draft of this website, and then I show it to my boss, to my business leads, product managers, and whatnot, and they say, hey, Alex, for this heading tree, right, we don't quite like the size. Can we kind of like increase it? You could do it like super quickly. So you just select on the element, and I'm going to select for all heading tree sizes, and then I'm going to specify and make this size bigger. Let's say 32 pixels, for example. All right, and it's too big, I can just tweak it on the spot. And then imagine the power of this thing. I could just have my managers or business leads, right, standing just like right beside me, and they can look at those changes immediately, and that saves a lot of time. You see, instead of like you're using IDE, you have to like go inside the code it, and then they have to wait for you and look at you, and it's like, oh, you've got to wait for it again. So yeah, although that is pretty fast for certain people, but having it on the spot, that is what I'm trying to stress. You could do it so quickly and you can show it immediately. Right, we just change this back to 24 pixels just not to mess out with it. And then let's, for example, if let's say for this particular image that we have added, and they say, hey, Alex, can we like change this up? We don't quite prefer to have this screenshot of the app. We want to change it up. So what would Nick do? He just quickly prepare me an image, and then I would just drop it into Webflow, and I could just change the image. So I just scroll it down. Let's say, for example, I want to change it to this one. Let's click on it. You see, immediately it's there. So, and it's like up. All I need to do is just publish it, and it would be live on the website already. So yeah, but of course I'm not going to publish it since it's going to mess up the design. And I could also, in Webflow, it also offers options for us to like just Control Z. If let's say you make some mistakes and stuff like that. And obviously, they also besides undoing certain changes, Webflow also offer users to just do rollbacks as well. So periodically, what happens is that I could always like make checkpoints, right? To just say, let's for example, I say Ctrl+Shift+Save. I could make periodic backups and say that this is before image change, for example, and I save it. And this offers me the option, right, to just create a checkpoint. It's kind of like a restore point in your Windows machine, right? To just say that, oh, at this point, I'm trying to do certain experiments, right, that may screw up some of the layouts and behavior. And if let's say once it's online and we find that the way it works is not too great, and there's too much changes along the way, right, we could always do a rollback as well. But if I don't do that, those checkpoints as well, right, Webflow also offers periodic change saving as well. So every time when you publish something, it would always save a copy of the previous changes as well. So yeah, those are some of the great things about it as well. And another thing the one I want to show you is that you see just now when I was selecting all the other elements, right, the highlight is always in blue. So you see all these things are in blue color because these are just a normal standard elements which is siloed to itself. Whatever changes you make, right, as long as there's one single class applied to it, it will just apply to this particular element. But what if you have, like, for example, some of you who are PhD developers, right, you always have that, remember that include function where you do it once and you just call the same file. It's kind of like a variable, you see. Webflow offers this kind of component base where you do it once and then you can just copy and paste all over your website. So this is one of the elements where it's what they call like a component. So I could double click inside and I could edit this one, and then this thing can be saved as a component. So let's say, for example, for this block feature section, right, if I just show you the arrangement over here, this block feature, I want this thing to be replicated to all the other pages, right? I could quickly do so by, let's say, for example, I go to HR operations, and then I have all this content over here, but my business lead is telling me, hey, please include that block over there. So normally, if you're going to do code, right, you just have to copy the code base and all the things. It's pretty what, like what you say, mafana, So I could just come to symbols over here, which is what I did. And then remember, you see this block feature, which is exactly that green bounding box that we saw. I could just drag this up and just put it over here. Oh, I just drag it in, I put it in the wrong area, drag this one, and then I'm just going to put it right beside here. Okay, so yeah, you see, so I have this particular symbol or this component drop over here, and then it's basically done deal. So if let's say if I make any changes over here, let's say reflections, I put an exclamation mark over here, and then I click outside. So technically this is saved already. So we are now at the HR operation pages, right? If I go back to home, and I can scroll it back down, you see the exclamation mark is there. So it's like I just do it at any point, as long as there's a symbol, the same symbol at any pages, and then I make those edits, right, it would propagate itself to all the other pages. So imagine this kind of flexibility and this kind of power offered by Webflow, right? If you're a designer, I would strongly suggest you just start a free account with Webflow and just play with it. and imagine the kind of possibilities in terms of producing prototypes very quickly, right? And just prove a point or just prove a case and have it running and showcase it to everyone that you need to. So for me personally, for me and Nick, we always utilize our Webflow to quickly prototype a lot of things. And sometimes, right, when we are, we just want to speed things up, we don't draw anything on Figma because, it still needs time to draw and they translate it to Webflow, right? We sometimes just start it immediately in Webflow just to do a quick down and dirty to prototype something, to create a new page or new element, and then just showcase it to the people or the stakeholders that we have to. So yeah, that's the quick Webflow demo that we have over here. Anything else I can show you? For example, I can create buttons. You can add like things. For example, if you're curious how all these kind of buttons are created, basically you can do this kind of buttons. So basically what we did was we added the font icon and we have these labels over here, and you can create this almost anything that imaginable that you could create in the Figma, you could do it inside Webflow. Probably sometimes you may need a little certain extra knowledge on custom coding. This is where the part where I mentioned that you come into the page settings and you just apply your custom coding over here. So if you needed to, you could also at any time, Webflow also allows you to add custom CSS beyond the ones that is offered within the editor itself. So yeah, that's a quick demo on Webflow. These are all the things that is possible. You can create a product website, marketing website. You can even create like quick prototypes like this one just to showcase how it will behave. And right now we are at an age where speed is about everything. So Webflow actually allows you as a designer to really speed up your workflow and create anything that you could imagine, So yeah. Okay, back to you, Justin.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, Alex and Nick, for that amazing session. We hope the audience managed to pick up a thing or two about design and can kickstart your journey on the design. Let's move on to the next session, which is the Q&A. And let's invite both Alex and Nicholas to join us back for the live Q&A. If you have any questions, remember to please feel free to post them in the live chat. And I think I can start off with the Q&A by asking one question that I saw one of our commenters commented on the live chat. So as a non-designer, right, because we work together with you guys, the design team, a lot, what tools should we know or be familiar with to be able to work better with you, to complement you and make your jobs much easier? Nick, can you take an answer?
Yeah, you want to take this one?
Yeah, can. I think knowing the basic image manipulation softwares will be enough already. I don't think you need to be too familiar with it. I think all you need to do is just to learn basic stuff, like maybe how to change text, how to move certain things, how to copy and paste certain things here and there. Like in our office, we use Adobe XD mainly for compositing our digital ads. I think it depends on your company, okay? So if let's say your company uses Adobe Photoshop, mainly for Adobe Photoshop, I think it's also good to know or learn a little bit about Photoshop, which is not hard. Like Photoshop is super easy to learn if you don't go into the too deep into it. But in the case for us, Adobe XD is already super easy to learn from the get-go. So it's really easy for marketing or even POs to just jump right in and do what they need to do. So it's just really about spending that one day of time to just really get familiar with the software, depending on what your office is using. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to the next one from Iza. So she's asking, is it better to pick up coding and design as a complementary skill? Because I think there are a lot of small teams out there, small companies, where one person has to wear plenty of hats. So yeah, I think it's a common issue where they cannot have two people doing two different roles. They would rather have one person who can, wear different hats, can do design and coding at the same time. So is it much better to pick up these two skills together?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take this. So
you take this one, okay.
I think internally, between me and Nick, we have very different skill sets as well. So for Nick wise, he's super, super strong, like so strong in terms of getting illustrations done. And if you were to ask me to like draw, I could draw it as well, but I would hands down, I'm not as good as him. So that's the reason why he's a world champion as well. So yeah, if coming back to the question, of course, if you had the time or even just like basically the weekend, right, to just pick up coding and design, that would always be great as well. Because for Nick, he didn't have any much of coding experience as well. But I something that I really appreciate is that he actually took up the effort and the initiative, right, to just say that, hey, I want to learn how to code, not entirely everything, but at least, to just know the intricacies, like what I covered on when I was covering Webflow, right? To know how to manipulate code and how to read code, that is partly important. And then you match it up with, if let's say you don't do design as well, just go through some of the web resources that you have online right now, and then just quickly learn out, how do you combine these two things? And then it would definitely help you in terms of getting your productivity up as well, and then helping your team getting done quicker as well. So if you were to ask me, if it's a small team and all things, sometimes, like it or not, you have to kind of like learn as you go. You got no choice.
Yes, correct. But I add that today also, because I feel like it's also very important if you know how to know like the basics of code and how the language works, it's also much more easier to like communicate with devs as well. Because I find it, before this, it was really hard for me to talk to devs about certain things. But ever since I like spending time with them, learning all the jargons and learning like the coding basics, it's much more easier to talk to them. It's much more easier to get the point across as well. So yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't like it when your developers start telling you, when you draw something and you describe it to them, they say, what is this?
All right. Speaking on like picking up coding and all, right? Is there any like platform where you guys learn coding on your own? Like, is there any app or anything out there that can help any designers out there that think they want to pick up coding as well?
Yeah, Nick, you'll be the best person to tell about this.
I think
how do you learn?
Because when I just started out, Alex mentioned, I started out as just like doing like graphic stuff mainly. But then ever since, I think Webflow really helped in especially me in knowing how like coding works. Because in Webflow, everything works as if it's in Visual Studio Code, but then it's done like visually there. And over the time after using Webflow, right, it really helps me to understand like how it works and how my elements are being translated into code as well. And also it really helps when in Webflow you're able to add custom code. I sometimes need to do my own functions. I will also just like learn on the side lah. Stack Overflow is my best friend. W3 School and Stack Overflow is my best friend. That's where I learn as I go. But I think there's so many YouTube tutorials right now, like compared to back then in like when I was in college, there's so many YouTube tutorials right now. I don't think you need to be afraid of learning where to learn code lah. Just go to YouTube and type, I want to learn HTML and CSS, you will get what you need already. Yeah.
You won't have like resources like, CodePen, where you have all these other developers in everywhere over the world where they create just like small elements, like a button. When you click it, it has like fancy animations, right? And they have sample codes over there. So for me and Nick, we always refer to these kind of examples to say, hey, how do you do this, all these things? And we just you base it up.
All right. Okay. Moving on to the next question from Shed Yen Tan. So Nick, maybe you can take this. We can't afford premium tools, but are the tools that just now you mentioned, do they have free versions? And do you have any recommendations for like a company or a team who is starting out with design?
Let me think. If you're talking about the Adobe suite, no, they're not free. In fact, they are quite expensive. And I think a good alternative to that is if you're only talking about creating collaterals, marketing collaterals, simple stuff, I think tools like Canva. I know in the design industry, not much people like to hear the word Canva, but I think if it suits your need, I think it's a good enough tool for you. I don't think tools should be. I don't think a designer should be defined by their tools. So just use Canva if you feel like that's enough for you. And if you're talking about the UI UX tools like Adobe XD and Figma, they're free. They offer like a free subscription. You're able to just like do whatever you want. But I think Figma is only limited to 3 projects, which I think is more than enough for you to learn something lah. And if you like the service, just buy. It's not that expensive, so I think it's around like $17 a month. And Zeplin is also free as well for one project. So if your team is small, you only have one product to focus on, I think that's good enough for you to really try the Zeplin. Webflow is free also, but then it's only free for I think 2 websites, right? Is it? 1 or 2 websites?
Three projects or 3 websites, actually, basically 3 websites.
Yeah, I think that's good enough for you to get a grasp of like if you like Webflow or not, or if you want to continue with Webflow or not. And if you do, you just like subscribe, lor. I think these are the options. But for Adobe Suite, I don't think there's a really good contender for them. Like unfortunately, I also want to find a good contender for them, but then I can't. But yeah.
All right. Okay. So another question from Shen Tan. Maybe Alex, you can take this. All right. So is WordPress better than Webflow? Because I think most of the time, people use WordPress as their go-to. When they start their blogs, all those, they use WordPress first. So is it better to start WordPress than Webflow for my website? Webflow seems a bit more advanced and complicated. And is there like templates, where you can just edit, drag and drop for like beginners?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. To start off the bat, definitely nothing wrong if you were to prefer WordPress as your starting point, because after all, it has been many years that WordPress has been in the market, and as well as it has a lot of resources as well. But one thing that I do not quite like about WordPress is that there's this setup that you have to perform to it as well. You see, and in terms of the editor as well, it's very I would say pretty much dated in a way. Nothing wrong with WordPress. I still think it's a great platform. Just that in terms of my personal preference, that I would prefer something I could see it, I could just edit it immediately. So Webflow also offers templates as well. You can just quickly when you start a new project, and there's actually free templates as well as premium templates that you can actually purchase, and you can just select whichever one that you want. You can preview it as well, and if you want to pay one, just pay for it, and then you can just install it as already. So once it's done, it actually presents it the way that you saw it just now when I was doing the Webflow session. You can just immediately quickly edit any buttons that you don't like. You can edit the font sizes, anything that you could do it in CSS. Webflow allows you to edit it quickly. So you were to ask me, probably I wouldn't go the WordPress way. I would just get it down and dirty with Webflow already. Buy a template, edit it immediately, and just go live with it. So you can have, like, if let's say you don't want to spend any time or anyone or designers, right, to spend expenses on it one. You can just use Webflow yourself, just learn it. They even have learning tutorials on their website that you can just run through and just have your product site immediately up. This part works particularly well for if, let's say, you're a startup, you're trying to market a new product or new services very quickly, and you can just have a live website immediately.
Okay, all right. Also on the question of WordPress, Joe Fan Pang asks, speaking of WordPress, is it a thing of the past? And why should WordPress users migrate to Webflow? And if they were to migrate, would it be very difficult to move it over?
I don't think WordPress you would say a thing of the past. It still has its own pretty much a sizable market as well. I would say that Webflow would be basically a disruptor to the market itself, kind of like how Uber or Grab, right, when it came in, and they are basically offering about the same thing, but the way to execute it is completely different. So I wouldn't say the taxi market is completely dying. There are still people who want to take taxi, right? And there are people who would prefer to take Grab. So basically, the way I would see it is that WordPress would always be there. There would always be people who are more comfortable working with WordPress, but I would consider Webflow is to help aspiring designers or people who they don't like to code, they don't like to deal with too many complications or complexities, right? And if, let's say, you really want something the barrier is lower and the wall to climb through is lower to learn it, right? I think Webflow would be the best case to do it, because personally for me, I am designer first, developer second. Having touched both bases, right? I would consider Webflow is it's way easier to learn. I mean, you could just ask Nick. He was I forced him to use Webflow actually.
Yes, Alex
Okay.
brought in the whole Webflow initiative, but it was cool. Yeah.
All right. Let's go to the next question from Alan Turing. Okay, I think this question will be perfect for Nick. As a Adobe World Champion, what is your view on freelance websites nowadays that provide services to create visual designs for companies at like super cut cost price? You know, do you still want to?
Okay.
So I think for small companies especially, do you think better to hire permanent staff that does design or get like freelance people who does design? So what are your thoughts on this? Is your job at stake?
I don't think our job will be at stake. I think it only just pushes us designers who are working in the company to push ourselves even further to stand out from these kinds of websites. I think these kind of websites provide a really crucial service as well to small like businesses owners. I think because sometimes they can't really afford the personalized price of like some freelancers. So they go to these kind of sites like 1.5K for a landing page or whatever. So I think it's nothing wrong. It really depends on your requirements. Do you want someone who knows your brand well, who will always be with you and know your brand guidelines, know your brand goals, and know you as a person, like what will you need for a website? Or would you rather have something fast and with straight away done, finish like one website for you already, and then very cheaply from someone who doesn't really know your brand? He might know your colors a bit, like your main colors or whatever, but he wouldn't really be intimate, with your brand per se. But like, let's say you hire a designer if Webflow comes in a good solution as well, where Webflow is also very easy to set up. That one freelancer who really knows that one designer in your team who really knows your brand can easily just set up a website that is 100% to your needs. So I think it's really up to you and your business needs.
Okay. Another one that is similar to the previous question from Xiao Wei Chin. What are your thoughts on unlimited graphic design services like Kim? So I think this is different from a freelancer that works with you, but this is more of like a subscription service to a design service, that provides design. Design. So would it make more sense for a company to hire that team as their design team or a designer?
Alex, do you want to take this, Alex? What do you think? You have any thoughts on this?
Well, people like or services like Kim, I would say that they are very important for the industry as well. Although personally, in terms of, I push a lot in terms of having good quality delivery. Kim, definitely there are a lot of good services like Kim right there, where they deliver actually quality design as well. But I would just stress, like how Nick has been saying, is that sometimes when you get external people to work on things that you want, you may or may not have that buy-in in terms of to know your company as a whole, to know the feeling, the branding, or even I would say like the intricacies of what makes your product per se. I mean, you can brief Kim, like for example, and say, I want this, I want that. But basically, at the end of the day, realistically, right, it's still they are trying to just fulfill those requirements and get paid. That's it. That's the thing. So whereas if let's say you were to hire your own designers, you would have that kind of bonding within the company, right? That kind of culture that makes everyone part of the employee. And those things, while may seem little, it drives the overall operation, the overall feeling of the product they're trying to build, right? And it shows when you're trying to showcase it to your customers compared to something that's been delivered by external parties. Nothing wrong with what external parties are trying to deliver, but the feeling eventually of it, right, is completely different. It's kind of like, I would say, the food that your mom or if your dad cooks as well is completely different than what you would get from a restaurant. They're very good restaurants, Michelin stars restaurants, right? But that's kind of different.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay. We have time for one last question, and I think this addressed directly to you, Alex. Okay.
Mm.
So Afizi Muhammad asks,
Yep.
currently I'm using WordPress for my website. Can I use Webflow for WordPress? So I think he means like, is it possible to like migrate that WordPress site into Webflow?
So yeah, definitely you can do that as well. Previously you can't because I mean Webflow, although they've been here many years, but they have been focusing on majority on their own platform, like dealing e-commerce. If you want e-commerce on the website as well, they actually have an engine over there that enables that. Recently they have partnered with quite a few third-party developers who, like for example, Udesly, Udesly. So Udesly is a third-party team that's been developing all these adapters, right? That allows you to kind of like you develop your website or the whole structure of the site, right, within Webflow. And once you're done with it, you just export it out as the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code, right? And just pump it into the adapter. So what it would do is that for a lot of designers, like for me, example, I don't really know how to code a WordPress theme as well. So the Udesly adapter would actually convert whatever has been exported from Webflow into WordPress compatible theme. So once it exports the final file, you can just inject it into WordPress, and it will just basically, like Apple put it up, magically, it will just work.
All right. Okay. Okay, I think that is all the time we have for today. So thank you both, Alex and Nick, for answering the questions and sharing your insights and advice to our audience. Okay, so if you have any more burning questions that we were unable to address during this webinar, you can always email us at hello@outhr.my. So before you leave, just another reminder to fill up your information in the QR code above that will appear suddenly, or the link provided in the description box below, or within the live chat that has been posted. So if you are interested in our solutions that were mentioned, or if you want to visit the websites that both Alex and Nick have created, you can check it out in the description below: Omni Hotline, OutHR, and iFleet. So you can also click in a live chat that will appear soon to view more information about it. Okay, you can easily sign up or register your interest for any of our products as well. And as mentioned, if you need any help, you can always find us at hello@outhr.my. So our next webinar will be coming up soon, and you can stay tuned to our webinars page for more info. And we will be sending you an invite the next couple of days. So if you have any topics that you're interested that you want us to talk about, we will always be happy to organize a webinar around that topic. You can just drop us an email with that topic. All right, thank you very much again for staying with us until the end. We hope you enjoyed this webinar as much as we enjoyed planning for it. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy, and see you soon.